Hello, welcome to Berlin Audio Lab. My name is Haris, and in this video I want to talk about how to make mixes louder without ruining them. Here's my session. I have 3 songs for you today. The first one is called I Need Your Love by Ingrid Arthur. The second one is called Brisa by Ambrodavi. And the third one is called Symmetry by Rosemarine. You'll find the links to the songs in the description down below. So, you see I have 2 of each. These are copies of each other. On top, I have my final mix, and on the bottom, I have a copy of that with a bunch of processing. Let's check out I Need Your Love first. I want to remind you guys, the goal here is to take these mixes, they're all final mixes, everybody has approved them, and just turn them up. In doing so, though, we don't want to destroy the balance or the overall tone of the mix. This is not an easy thing to do, and I hope I've succeeded, so let's dive right in and find that out together. So let me play you a part of the mix to get a vibe for what it is.
I'll be standing next to you. I need your love. I'll do anything for you. I need your love. I'll be standing next to you. I need your love. I'll do anything for you.
Okay, so this chunk of the song I measured and it's at minus 12.8 LUFS, which is already quite loud. It's going to be interesting to see how much more level we can squeeze out of it. So let's see what I did to it. Here's the chain. These 2 last plugins are deactivated. This is just a metering plugin, just to see how loud we are. And this is a trim plugin, boosting level. I'm going to bypass that trim plugin because this is the stage where I actually turn it up. All this stuff is level matched within 1/10 of a dB. Here's the process version, and I'm going to be going back and forth.
I'll be standing next to you. I need your love. I'll do anything for you. I need your love. I'll be standing next to you. I need your love. I'll do anything for you.
So here's the first plugin. It's a high-pass filter, and the reason for it is that it's followed by a compressor. It removes any rumble the mix might have had, so that when it hits that compressor, it doesn't overload it. Let's look at what this compressor is doing. It's at a brick wall limiter setting, fastest possible attack, fastest possible release. So it's an extreme setting, but it's doing very little. It's there to catch the parts of the song where it gets peaky, where things are poking out. So look at this needle and you'll be able to see exactly what I mean.
I'll be standing next to you. I need your love. I'll do anything for you. I need your love. I'll be standing next to you.
It's shaving off a couple of peaks. Following that, I have this plugin. This is a clipper. And what that does is that it takes the super peaky stuff and clips it. The way I set that up is by hitting that wet knob and listening to what the plugin is removing. So let's do that. Every kick and snare gets a little bit of clipping. Here's a Pro Q3. Every time I use this K-Clip plugin, I'm hearing a gentle roll-off in the high frequencies. And what that is just I'm reintroducing it, but just on the sides of the mix. And if you apply an EQ on the sides, you create the impression that the mix is wider. Following that, I have a widener to further widen the mix. Now that we know what's under the hood, let's get really nerdy and look at the peak meters. Because this has a lower peak value than this one. Again, they're level matched to 1/10 of a dB. But still, even though level matched and with a lower peak level, this sounds, if not louder, it sounds more immediate to me. Maybe that's just my impression, but let's see if you guys feel the same.
I'll be standing next to you. I need your love. I'll do anything for you. I need your love. I'll be standing next to you.
this is at minus 0.3 and this is at minus 1.8, which means that we can turn the mix up by 1.5 dB and match that peak level. So let's do that, and now let's A/B.
I'll be standing next to you. I need your love. I'll do anything for you. I need your love. I'll be standing next to you. I need your love. I'll do anything for you.
Who wouldn't like that? Let's now move on to the second song. I'll play you a part of the final mix just to get an impression for what it is we're going to be working with.
Brisa que lleva viento, agua que no se deja coger. Riega todos los campos y en mi casa no hay que comer. Brisa que lleva viento, agua que no se deja coger. Riega todos los campos y en mi casa no hay que comer.
All right, I measured this part of the song and it's at minus 15.5. This is a slightly lower value. Remember, this was at minus 12.8, so it should be easier to squeeze some level out of that. Let's listen to the processed version, but with the final level boost off. What we're going to be hearing, again, is level matched within 1/10 of a dB. And I'm going to go back and forth between the final mix and the processed mix.
Brisa que lleva viento, agua que no se deja coger. Riega todos los campos y en mi casa no hay que comer. Brisa que lleva viento, agua que no se deja coger. Riega todos los campos y en mi casa no hay que comer. Brisa que lleva viento, agua que no se deja coger. Riega todos los campos y en mi casa no hay que comer. Brisa que lleva viento, agua que no se deja coger. Riega todos los campos y en mi casa no hay que comer.
So I don't know about you guys, but even when level matched, this processed version feels louder to me. So let's take a look under the hood. The first plugin is there for technical reasons. I'm just turning down the incoming signal by 5 decibels so that I can hit the chain in the level that I want to. And then at the end of the chain, I'm turning it back up. First plugin, again, high pass filter, so that this compressor is happy. Let's look at that compressor. Same deal. Fastest attack, not a super crazy ratio, 4:1 ratio, fastest release.
Brisa que lleva viento, agua que no se deja coger. Riega todos los campos y en mi casa no hay que comer. Brisa que lleva viento, agua que no se deja coger. Riega todos los campos y en mi casa.
So even though the settings are quite extreme, you don't really hear it acting too much. It does get a bit quieter because, I mean, we're removing about 0.8 dBs of level. This is a percussion-heavy track, super quick attacks, so it's normal for the compressor to be working a tiny bit more. Next up, I have this tape machine. What this is doing is it's shaving off these peaks. I'm going to turn off the tape machine and the imager following it, and I want to look at what the peak value is. Then I'm going to turn it back on and look at this peak value again.
Brisa que lleva viento, agua que no se deja coger. Riega todos los campos y en mi casa no hay que comer. Brisa que lleva viento, agua que no se deja coger. Riega todos los campos y en mi casa no hay que comer.
All right, so we're at minus 0.6. The track next to it, which is the unprocessed mix, is at minus 0.2, which means that up to this compressor, we were able to shave 0.4 dBs of level. Let's turn the tape machine on now and look at that again.
Brisa que lleva viento, agua que no se deja coger. Riega todos los campos y en mi casa no hay que comer. Brisa que lleva viento, agua que no se deja coger. Riega todos los campos y en mi casa no hay que comer.
So we're at minus 3.5. So now we have a difference of 3.3 decibels. But what's beautiful about it is that you don't really hear it. Check it out. I'm going to be turning this on and off, and tell me if you hear a massive difference.
Brisa que lleva viento, agua que no se deja coger. Riega todos los campos y en mi casa no hay que comer. Brisa que lleva viento, agua que no se deja coger. Riega todos los.
I mean, the only difference that I'm hearing is that it gets a little bit brighter when the tape machine is on, which is something that I happen to like. So not only are we gaining level, we're also improving the tone of the mix. I mean, life is really good sometimes, right? Next up, the same imager, just to give a little bit of width to the mix. And finally, I was able to squeeze 3.3 decibels of level out of it. So let's see what we've done in the final version of the processing.
Brisa que lleva viento, agua que no se deja coger. Riega todos los campos y en mi casa no hay que comer. Brisa que lleva viento, agua que no se deja coger. Riega todos los campos y en mi casa no hay que comer.
And you can see the peak level is now exactly the same. Let's move on to the next song. This is a song that has a bunch of low end, and it required a bit of a different strategy this time. So let's go and see what I did. First, I'm going to play you a chunk of the final mix to get an impression of what it is.
Symmetry, 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 symmetry. Poison glances cover me, addicted to my symmetry, 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 symmetry. Poison glances cover me, addicted to my.
And let's play the process version.
Symmetry, 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 symmetry. Poison glances cover me, addicted to my symmetry, 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 symmetry. Poison glances cover me, addicted to my.
Let's go and see what I did to it. I'll bypass everything for now and introduce every plugin one by one. First things first, EQ. I'm boosting some top end. The reason for this is that the rest of the chain is kind of making things darker gradually, so I boosted that in order to match the tone of the mixes. Next up, I have this SSL style compressor. Fastest attack, fastest release. The reason I use this specific compressor on this track is that it tightens the low end. So I'm not sure I'm compressing much, I'm probably compressing a bit, but it's also giving me a benefit that it just controls the low end in a really beautiful way.
Symmetry, 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 symmetry. Poison glances cover me, addicted to my symmetry, 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 symmetry.
Next up in our chain is this NLS channel plugin by Waves. It has 3 algorithms. This is an SSL, this is an EMI, and this is a Neve. I'm on the EMI algorithm, and I'm using a bunch of drive, but I'm compensating the output to match the level. The role of this plugin is exactly the same as the role of this tape machine, shaving off peaks, but instead of using a tape machine, I used this one because it can handle the low end better. The tape machine would just choke that 808 style low end. This doesn't. This works beautifully for this.
Symmetry, 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 symmetry. Poison glances cover me, addicted to my symmetry, 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 symmetry.
As you can see, I'm not overloading it. I'm just hitting it right at the sweet spot. Next up, this Klanghelm SDRR plugin. This is a saturation plugin. I'm using the desk algorithm. Same deal, shaving off peaks.
Symmetry, 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 symmetry. Poison glances cover me, addicted to my symmetry, 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 symmetry. Poison glances cover.
As you can see, I'm hitting it super hard, but I'm driving it very gently. Let's look at the peak meter and see how much level we have gained so far. This is at minus 0.6, the unprocessed mix. So let's see what this peak meter says.
Symmetry, 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 symmetry. glances cover me, addicted to my symmetry, 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 symmetry. Poison glances cover me, addicted to my.
Not bad. We were able to get 1.3 dB of level so far. Imager. Next up, a limiter. I'm not using it to boost level. I'm just reducing the ceiling, looking at this gain reduction value, and see how it's reacting and to what it's reacting. Let's do that together. Let's look at this part of the plugin and see what it's doing and when.
Symmetry, 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 symmetry. Poison glances cover me, addicted to my symmetry, 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 symmetry. Poison glances cover me, addicted to my.
So as you were able to see, the limiter is not limiting everything. It's just limiting the parts of the song that are poking out, and especially when the kick and the bass hit together in a certain way. After the limiter, I have a trim plugin that boosts the level by 0.4 decibels, and now the two mixes, the unprocessed one and the processed one, are level matched. So now that we know that the levels are exactly the same, let's go back and forth and see what we get.
Symmetry, 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 symmetry. Poison glances cover me, addicted to my symmetry, 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 symmetry. Poison glances.
And finally, this is the amount by which I was able to turn it up. I was able to get 2 dBs of level. Let's see what the final processed version is, and if we were able to match the peak levels.
Symmetry, 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 symmetry. Poison glances cover me, addicted to my symmetry, 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 symmetry. Poison glances cover me, addicted to my.
Bingo! So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please like and subscribe, and make sure you go check out the links to the songs down below. See you next time. Bye-bye.